So I was just sitting in meditation a bit ago, and what came up for me was recognizing where we are in this year. We're almost to the end of the year, and what's happened for me in this year. And what I was reminded of was that I started 2021 with the phrase for the year of being self-responsibility. It's not something that I really thought a whole lot about. It's what came to me. It's what I wrote down. It felt very strong. It felt very good. And what's happened over the course of this year was I was put in all these different situations where I was able to step into that and claim responsibility for my life in a greater way than I have been. And I want to share with you what my experience has been, because it is quite empowering to look at life from this framework, or from claiming responsibility for what happens, both the good and the bad in your life, in quotation marks, good and bad, positive and negative, or what feels like it's positive and negative. Whereas, looking at it from this framework, which I'll go into, it can help us see that it's all helpful and beneficial for us on our journey and on our evolution. But I also want to share because it's really helpful for navigating the chaos and the uncertainty that exists in our world right now. I see how I've changed over the past few years, and I used to be very reactive. I used to be highly affected by what I saw going on in the outside world. And now I am much more centered and present, that I can look at what's happening in the outside world with limitations. I have to take responsibility and know what my limits are. But I can look at what's going on in the outside world and not have it throw me out of my center, have me being very emotionally reactive to what I'm seeing. I'm much more able to process what I'm seeing and am able to let it move through me rather than get stuck within me. So I've had many opportunities to embody this concept, and I wanted to share a few of those. It's presented itself to me through my own personal work, through my relationship with my husband, and also with my interactions with what's going on outside of me. So I'm going to give two examples of how this concept of self-responsibility has shown up for me just within my own work, my own personal work. But there actually are many more, but I won't go into all of them right now. One is where I was in a situation where I was emotionally reactive and not enjoying the situation, and I took responsibility and left. And the other was recognizing and taking responsibility for what I have created in a more positive sense. So the first one has to do with leaving Costa Rica and coming to Mexico. Back at the beginning of the year, there was a lot of confusion, or there was a big change happening with regards to what Costa Rica was doing with their tourist visas. For a year, they had just been automatically renewing tourist visas due to the pandemic. And also because borders were closed, land borders were closed. And then there was talks about them not renewing, or they had stated they were not going to renew. But there was doubt whether that was really what was going to happen, because on many occasions, they will wait till the very last second and then change what they had said, go back on what they had said. So there was this distrust with the Costa Rican government. And I found myself very stressed out about not knowing whether we were going to have to leave the country. Leaving the country felt a little bit scary to me at the time. And what happened was a friend just encouraged us to just go take a trip. If ends up being that you needed to renew your visa, you're good. You don't have to worry about it. And if they extend the visas again, then you had a good trip. And to me, that was like spending money where we didn't need to spend money. But I surrendered to that, and we took a trip. And what happened was the Costa Rican government did end up extending at the very last minute. However, what happened was by me just making the decision, my husband and I making the decision for our family to take a trip, it took I was giving my emotions away to the Costa Rican government, and it felt very manipulative in a way that, and I was allowing my emotions to be manipulated. However, once we made the decision for ourselves, regardless of what's going on outside of us, it was this peace and this freedom. And I saw how I was giving my emotions away to something outside of me, rather than me making a decision and that being what our life was based upon. And so from that encounter, I decided I no longer trusted this relationship with the Costa Rican government, and that encouraged us to make plans to exit. That was what prompted the move. There are definitely more reasons for our move than that, but that was what nudged us in that direction. And I definitely see how stressed out I was, and I am what that has done has allowed me to feel a lot more relaxed about the different changes that comes with, especially how we're living now more nomadically. So the next area has to do with recognizing that my own choices created a favorable situation in my life. So back in February, we moved to the jungle in Costa Rica from the beach. And one of the reasons, a big reason for that move, was because I had been introduced to ayahuasca with a couple of shamans that lived in that jungle. And I wanted to go further with that work. And I didn't really want to have to leave my family for 10 days at a time to do so. So it felt right to move to the area. Our time in our other spot had felt like it had run its course and it was time to move on. And so we made plans. We moved to the jungle. We found a house. And then that was February, March, I went into ceremony for 10 days with these shamans and one of their teachers from Peru. And in my first ceremony, I felt this immense gratitude for being there, for being on the land that we were living on, for being able to be in this ceremony. There was just this enormous amount of gratitude that I felt for how everything had transpired. And after the ceremony, one of the shamans asked me how I was doing, and I just, that immense gratitude just came out for everything that had happened. And his response to me was, well, you created this. You created this experience for yourself. And recognizing that, I had this vision, this desire to move there, have more access to this medicine, go deeper with it. And I went through different growth opportunities to make it happen. And so taking responsibility for acknowledging that I played a huge role in making this happen was part of me developing this greater sense of self-responsibility. So the next big place that self-responsibility has shown up for me over the course of this year has to do with my relationship with my husband. And what I'm learning and what I've seen is that our relationship is a vehicle for both of our own self-growth, as we are mirrors for each other to show one another what it is that what our blind spots, essentially. And in that time of living in the jungle, we lived there for 7 months. I was doing ayahuasca retreats, and then I also began doing the work that he started in on the previous summer, like inner child healing work. And I began diving into that. And so things were coming up. What I learned during this intense period was how I was placing blame on him for my triggers. And, it was happening in both directions. But I began to see what was mine and what was his, and separating ourselves separating myself from taking responsibility for his stuff, and then also taking responsibility for mine. And what I saw was that, yes, I was having emotional responses, and I was placing the blame on him for my emotional response. For example, the phrase would be like, "You make me feel this way." It was very unconscious, and I imagine it's a very common dynamic within relationships. However, what I saw by beginning to recognize that my emotional responses are my stuff, it's not his. He is just showing me what my own triggers are, and by me being able to sit with those triggers and feel them and begin to acknowledge where they're coming from, and acknowledging that they're there, and not always putting the blame outside of me. Our relationship has really transformed through doing that. And it also feels really great because I can recognize that I don't have to change another person for me to feel whole and good in myself. So that work between us was challenging, and there was a lot of emotional roller coasters and us figuring this stuff out, but it's really changed the way in which we react and how we react and also relate to each other. And by recognizing what's ours and what is not ours, we are able to exist in a much healthier and, I'll say, pleasant way, because we can move through things in a way which we weren't able to move through things before. And then finally, relating to the world outside of us. So I'm sure you've realized that there's a lot of uncertainty and chaos in the world, and that can take us on emotional roller coasters, especially if we're paying attention to what's going on. And honestly, I feel it's designed that way. However, if we take self-responsibility for our experience, we can realize that we have so much more choice in our experience and how these events influence us. So, first of all, we get to say how much attention we give to the events outside of us. That's first of all. Second, we get to work on our own responses, how we respond to what is happening. And it's a practice. And so for me, that means me doing the things that support me being centered and present in my life, so then the chaos around me is not pulling me off my line. It's easy to turn on social media. Hopefully you're not watching the news. YouTube, whatever you're looking at, it's easy to go there and feel like this situation is hopeless, that we are being manipulated, that things are going in the wrong direction. And yeah, there is a lot that's happening out there. However, I feel that by giving our emotions away to what is happening, we are disempowering ourselves, and we are not allowing ourselves to make a difference in what's happening. I know for myself that when I am emotionally manipulated, I am fearful a lot of the times. And when I'm fearful, I become paralyzed, and I'm not useful when I am paralyzed. And so what I see is being responsible for ourselves in terms of how we are relating to what's going on in the outside world. It's really knowing how what's happening is impacting us, and taking steps to make sure that we are solid and in our own selves, and knowing what we're here to do, regardless of what is occurring in the outside world. So for me, this looks like knowing how much I can watch and look at, knowing when to turn it off. It means having a daily practice of centering myself and, not going on social media. It means I took Facebook off my phone because I would sit and scroll and go down the rabbit hole of what's happening. And so what I've noticed, especially in the last month, I'll say, is that I'm spending a lot less time on social media in terms of consuming it. And when I do go on there, I recognize how different my world is from what's happening in virtual land. And what's happening in my world like overrides the emotions that the virtual world could elicit within me. So that's just where I've gotten to. I'm by no means perfect. I'm not to say that I don't have my my moments of outrage. But my moments of outrage are very different than what they used to be. I used to be consumed by outrage, and now it's okay that I can sit with it, I can be with it, and use it in a different way than I used to be able to use it. So in sharing this with you, I think what I want to communicate is that what I've learned is that there's gonna always be, maybe not, but for the foreseeable future, there's gonna be a lot of chaos outside of ourselves. And the way to, I think, impact it in a more positive way is for us to do our own personal work. Affects us on multiple levels. It affects our relationships and improves our relationships. It improves our relationship with ourselves, and it impacts our relationship with the outside world. It allows us to have compassion for people that think differently than us. There's a lot of divisiveness right now, and we can't change by being emotionally reactive what is happening from the top down. What we can do is change ourselves, and in my view, that's going to have a much greater impact on our world than allowing those outside forces to continuously take us on these emotional roller coasters. So, my offer to you is, if you would like support with this, my husband, John, he works with people in terms of energetic healing sessions to help you connect on a much deeper level with your felt sense, with your emotions, how you respond and relate to your triggers. He has a very effective method that allows you to take responsibility for the things that are happening within in response to what's happening outside of you. Self-responsibility doesn't seem like it's the most attractive thing to commit yourself to. Sounds like discipline or work, and it is, but it's what I found to be extremely rewarding in terms of the experience of your life through reclaiming responsibility for your own experience in your life. So if you'd like to work with my husband, John, I'll include the link below. You can also go to johnrichardson-meyer.com and check out his services, his offerings. And if you're not enjoying the experience you're having in life, if life feels stressful, if it feels overwhelming, if what's happening in the outside world is constantly affecting you in a way that you are not enjoying, there's definitely things that can help change how you respond and the experience that you're having, and also making you a more effective individual at improving what's going on in the world. So thanks for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.